They didn't say I couldn't walk at graduation. They just told everyone else I wouldn't be there. The betrayal didn't come with a slammed door or a screaming match. It came in the form of a text from my Aunt Meredith. "Sad to hear you're not walking, Claire. Hope you're okay. We'll be cheering for you from here." No question, no curiosity, just acceptance of a lie I hadn't even heard yet. I checked the calendar. 3 days until the ceremony. I had already picked up my cap and gown, already printed out the final version of my speech. Approved by the faculty advisor 2 weeks earlier. I was the one who would open the ceremony. The first name called. The first student to take the stage. But somewhere between the truth and the version my parents passed around, I had vanished. My name is Claire Dalton. 18, first in my class. 4 years of silence, straight A's, and getting used to the sound of applause not meant for me. I didn't expect flowers. I didn't expect balloons or banners or a dinner reservation, but I thought they'd at least let me show up. They didn't. That night at dinner, I asked casually, "Did you tell anyone I wasn't attending the ceremony?" My mother glanced at me like I'd asked if it was raining. "You said you weren't sure about walking." Number, I said I didn't want a party. She waved a hand like that meant the same thing. "We just assumed you'd prefer to keep it low-key. You hate attention." My father chimed in without lifting his eyes from his fork. "It's not like college graduation. This isn't that deep." That was always the strategy. Minimize, dismiss, rewrite. They didn't forbid me from walking. They just made sure no one was watching when I did. What they didn't know, what they never bothered to ask, was that I'd already submitted my speech. It had been reviewed, approved, slotted to open the ceremony. I hadn't told them. Not because I wasn't proud, because I already knew they'd find a way to make it smaller. Don't let it go to your head. It's just high school. Other kids worked harder. They couldn't take the stage from me, so they took the audience. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I opened my laptop. I emailed the school coordinator. "Please confirm that my 5 reserved guest tickets are secured." Her reply was instant. "Confirmed. You're our valedictorian. We'll take care of you." That sentence did something to me. It wasn't grand. It wasn't loud. But it was something I hadn't heard in 18 years. Someone saying, "You matter, as you are," without translation. I confirmed 1 seat. For my grandmother. The rest? I left unassigned. If my parents came, they'd sit in the back. If they didn't, even better. Because I didn't need them to see me happy. I needed them to know they missed it. On purpose. The next text wasn't as polite. It came from my cousin Becca, who rarely pretended to like me even when we were kids. "Can't believe you're bailing on your own graduation. Aunt Jen said you were too embarrassed about your GPA? Yikes. Hope you're okay or whatever." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have something to say, because the message told me everything I needed to know. They hadn't just failed to send invitations. They had rewritten the entire narrative. According to the family group chat I wasn't in, I was skipping the ceremony because I was overwhelmed, because I was ashamed, because I wasn't finishing strong, which would have been easier to believe if I weren't the one writing the valedictorian speech. My parents didn't lie with malice. They lied with ease, with the same practiced subtlety they used when telling people I was more of an indoor kid, instead of saying they never showed up to my games. The same way they told relatives I was exploring different college options, when I'd already been accepted with scholarship offers they hadn't read. Their lies weren't emotional, they were practical. It was more convenient to frame me as withdrawn and underachieving than to explain why the daughter they never celebrated was being honored. My mother ran with the version that made her look compassionate. "Claire just doesn't want all the attention. You know how she gets." My father's version was colder. We told her it's not worth the drama if she's not proud of her performance. It was their favorite trick. Translate my boundaries into shame. Call my independence a character flaw. And people believed them. Because I was quiet. Because I didn't correct anyone. Because I let them speak first. For too many years. But this time was different. This time, I had a microphone. And a program with my name printed in bold. And 5 minutes on stage that no one could interrupt. The faculty advisor emailed again that afternoon. Your speech is powerful, understated, but pointed, exactly what this class needs. He had no idea what I was actually writing, because the draft I submitted was real. But the one I'd deliver? That one had teeth. That night, I sat at the dinner table while my parents laughed about who would give the toast at Daniel's graduation dinner. My brother had just finished 8th grade. His grades were average, his attendance was average, but he was getting a custom cake and a guest list. My valedictorian honors, on the other hand, had been met with silence. No cards, no photo, not even a, "We're proud of you." It was easier, I think, for them to pretend it wasn't happening. Easier to say I opted out than admit they were never invited in. I poured myself a glass of water, finished my dinner, excused myself quietly, and went upstairs to practice my speech. The real one, the one with a single line they'd never forget. Some of us made it to this stage with no one clapping, no one watching, no one waiting for us at the end of the aisle. I wasn't the child they posted about. That was Daniel. His soccer trophies, his B+ science project, his Future Leader Award from a summer camp they paid for and forgot to attend. My accomplishments lived in silence. Certificates slid into drawers. Emails skimmed and never replied to. College acceptance letters met with comments like, "Well, just don't let it change you." It's not about being the best, Claire. Some of us didn't need to be valedictorian to matter. That's how they wanted me seen. Smart, but not too proud. Quiet, but not too distant. Impressive, but never remarkable enough to require recognition. When I got my national merit letter, my mother said, "You know that doesn't guarantee anything, right?" When I was asked to tutor struggling seniors after school, my father said, "So, free labor?" And when I mentioned the school counselor wanted to nominate me for a state scholarship, my mother waved it off. "You're already getting a lot. Don't be greedy." It wasn't just that they didn't celebrate me. It was that they resented the idea they'd ever have to. That's what made the graduation lie so natural for them. They had spent years shaping me into a footnote. Of course, they didn't want to explain how I became the headline. I didn't push back anymore. I had learned the pattern. Any time I said, "Look what I've done," they found a way to say we've done more. Even when I outworked them, outperformed them, outgrew them, their story stayed louder. Until now. The day before graduation, my father handed Daniel a card and a crisp $100 bill. "Proud of you, buddy. You're growing up fast." He hadn't said the word proud to me in over a year. I watched from the hallway, didn't interrupt. Just took a photo of the moment on my phone. Not to remember it. To remind myself that the standard was never about effort. It was about control. That evening, I pulled out the folded draft of my real speech. It had been edited and retyped a dozen times. Not to make it safer, but sharper. Every line was wrapped in glass. Not bitter, not angry, just precise. There was a section they'd never expect. Some of us had to become our own audience. Some of us walked alone, not because no one was invited, but because no one showed up. I stared at that line a long time, then wrote one more, just for them. And if they watch me now, it's only because I left them nowhere else to look. The truth was, they never knew me. Not really. They knew the version that kept her head down, the version who didn't argue when she was skipped over, who apologized for being too intense, who smiled through being forgotten. But the version they erased, she was already building her exit. When I got the email naming me valedictorian, I didn't tell them. I didn't print it. Didn't hang it on the fridge next to Daniel's soccer schedule or Mom's favorite wine quote magnet. I read it once, then saved it to a hidden folder. Not because I was afraid they'd find out, because I wanted to be the one to show them, on stage, public, unavoidable. The following week, while my classmates were planning graduation brunches and senior parties, I was in the school library every evening after hours. I asked the librarian for a quiet room. I rehearsed alone. 10 minutes a day, reading the words out loud until I could deliver them without blinking. My voice was flat, calm, clean. I stripped the emotion out on purpose. I didn't want tears, I wanted precision. One night, I stayed so late the janitor offered to walk me to the door. He asked if I was prepping for a presentation. I just smiled and said, "Something like that." During finals week, I was pulled aside by a visiting admissions rep. He recognized my name, said he'd seen my transcript. He asked if I'd consider applying to the honors program at his university, even though the deadline had passed. I told him I already had an offer, but I'd keep the door open. He shook my hand, said, "We don't get many students like you." I didn't tell him that I had been made to feel like I didn't belong anywhere. Instead, I thanked him, quietly, like always. But this time I saved his business card. That night, I printed out 2 things: my speech, final draft, the admission letter I'd accepted without their input. I slid both into a folder, tied it with a black ribbon, and placed it at the bottom of my bag. I didn't need them to help me get there. I just wanted them to know. When I stood on that stage, it wouldn't be despite them. It would be without them. Graduation was 3 days away when I called the school office to confirm my guest tickets. I didn't ask my parents, didn't mention it at dinner, didn't leave a note on the fridge. The woman on the phone, Ms. Laney, recognized my name immediately. "Oh, Claire, yes, of course, 5 seats reserved up front, faculty row." I requested to adjust the list. "I'd like to keep 1 reserved," I said. "Just 1." She paused. "Would you like to release the others?" "No," I told her. "Just don't assign them. Let them sit empty. Let the front row feel the silence they thought they could control." The one person I did invite? My grandmother. I sent the invitation directly, overnight shipping, signature required. She called me the next morning, voice warm, a little shaky. "You're speaking?" "Yes." "First?" I smiled. "Very first." She didn't ask why her name hadn't come from my mother. She didn't ask why no one else had called. She just said, "I'll be there, and I'll be early." That Friday, I picked up my gown from the main office. The volunteer handed me a folded garment bag and smiled. "They said you're opening the ceremony. That true?" "It is." "Guess that means you're the one to beat." "No one's beating anyone," I said. "Some of us just waited longer to speak." I didn't walk across that stage for their approval. I didn't care if they stood, or clapped, or even showed up. I only cared that when the lights came on and the first name echoed through the auditorium, it would be the same name they tried to make disappear, and it would be undeniable. I bought my own shoes, pressed my own gown, packed an extra copy of my speech in a sealed envelope labeled, "In case they try to interrupt you." I knew they wouldn't stop me from speaking, but they'd try to pretend it didn't matter. So I made sure every moment did. The night before, I slept without a single alarm set, because I knew I wouldn't oversleep. You don't miss the day they finally hear you. Graduation morning was overcast, just enough to keep the sweat from settling under the robe. I left early, not because I was nervous, because I didn't want to be seen leaving the house. They didn't ask where I was going. They had already made peace with the version of the story they liked best. The daughter who skipped her own graduation because she couldn't handle the pressure. I let them believe it. I arrived at the venue an hour early. The chairs were still being aligned on stage. A few volunteers bustled between aisles, fixing ribbons, polishing railings. I greeted the principal with a quiet nod. He smiled wide and said, "Ready to be the first voice they hear? Ready to be the only one they remember?" The other students trickled in, robes slightly wrinkled, tassels tangled. They laughed, took selfies, swapped notes about summer jobs and post-grad plans. I stayed to the side, watched the rows fill, watched the faculty take their seats, and then the audience. That's when I saw her, my grandmother, walking carefully down the side aisle. She wore pale blue, not flashy, not dull. The color she always said made her feel calm. She didn't wait to be escorted. She found her name on the seating chart, front row, left side. I met her gaze from behind the curtain. She didn't wave. She placed her purse at her feet, folded her hands in her lap, and sat like a woman who knew she belonged. 2 more rows filled, then 3. No sign of them. No rustling of familiar coats. No cough that sounded like Dad. No perfume trail I would have recognized anywhere. Their seats remained empty. Row 2, center left, unclaimed, perfect. Someone from the staff came over with a clipboard. Still waiting on guests? Number they've arrived in spirit. The woman smiled politely, not understanding. She moved on. A bell chimed twice. The murmuring died. The lights shifted. I stepped into the wings. A thin strip of floor separated me from the microphone, from the auditorium, from every person who'd ever heard about me through a filtered lens. The announcer cleared his throat. And now, to open this year's commencement ceremony, our valedictorian Claire Dalton. I took one breath, not deep, not dramatic, just enough. And then I walked forward, toward the stage they never planned to witness, to say what they never wanted heard. The microphone was already on. No click, no static, just the soft hum of a room waiting. I adjusted the height, ran a fingertip along the wood grain of the podium, light pressure, a grounding ritual. Then I looked up. Not at the cameras, not at the smiling teachers in the front row. I looked directly at the 3 unclaimed seats in the middle left section, the chairs that had always belonged to them, still empty, still perfect. "Good morning," I began, voice level. "My name is Claire Dalton, and I'm honored to speak as this year's valedictorian." Standard, measured, expected. The crowd applauded. The principal gave a subtle nod. Someone whistled from the back. I didn't smile. I wasn't here to entertain. We're told that education is a shared journey, that we don't walk these paths alone, that behind every student stands a chorus of support, parents, mentors, friends. I paused. But for some of us, that chorus was quiet. The silence hit fast. The kind of silence that leans forward. I met it head on. Some of us studied by flashlight when others went to sleep. Some of us balanced jobs with school because help never came. Some of us taught ourselves how to apply, how to register, how to survive. Some of us didn't have people cheering us on. We had people telling us to be grateful we weren't a burden. I let that one land, not rushed, not softened. I heard someone in the audience shift uncomfortably. Good. The truth has texture. This diploma isn't just a piece of paper, it's a record of restraint, of choosing not to scream every time we were told we were too much, of building without blueprints and walking without maps. My fingers tightened slightly on the podium. I didn't need to cry. Tears blur the truth. This wasn't a wound I needed to show. It was a scar I was letting them witness. Quietly. Undeniably. I wasn't supposed to be up here. In fact, some of you were told I wouldn't be. You might have heard I wasn't ready, that I'd chosen not to participate, that I was overwhelmed. My voice didn't change. That was a lie. I heard the intake of breath in the audience, the subtle weight shift of people realizing, someone lied to me. Perfect. I continued. Because lies are easy when the truth is quiet, and I've been quiet long enough. I didn't miss this ceremony. I was erased from it, on purpose, but I showed up anyway. One of the faculty advisors dropped his pen. The clink echoed louder than any applause. So this speech isn't just for celebration. It's for restoration. It's for the students who wrote their own recommendation letters, who scheduled their own interviews, who carried praise in silence because no one knew how to say it for them. It's for the ones who were left off the list, on purpose. I let that final phrase cut clean and slow. Left off the list. The weight of it hung in the air like ash. But we're here now. And if they're watching, it's only because we left them nowhere else to look. I closed my speech with stillness. No dramatic bow, just a nod. And then I walked away from the podium without waiting for applause, because I didn't need noise to know I'd been heard. I needed silence, and the silence was absolute. I took my seat again as the next speaker was introduced, but I didn't hear a word they said. I was watching the audience. It started with one woman in the fourth row, someone I recognized from church when I was younger, who leaned into the person next to her and whispered something while pointing discreetly toward the empty seats reserved for my family. Another woman glanced toward the front left section, then back to me. And just like that, the shift began. People noticed what wasn't there. No mom brushing a tear away with a tissue. No dad clutching the program like it meant something. No sibling with a camera ready. Just 3 conspicuously unoccupied seats. 3 hollow reminders that while I had arrived, they had chosen not to. I saw one of my classmates' parents frown. They had believed the story. That I opted out of graduation. That I had trouble finishing. That I was taking time off to recalibrate. They saw now that none of that was true, and their expressions turned to something sharper than confusion. It was disgust, not at me, at the people who hadn't come. After the ceremony, people began standing, milling toward the stairs. Hugs, flowers, photo flashes. I didn't move. I sat with my hands folded on my lap, letting the moment settle, the way a lake flattens after a stone has struck its surface. Then a quiet voice behind me, "Claire?" I turned. It was my grandmother. She wasn't crying. She was smiling, but not the soft smile of a proud grandparent. This was colder, sharper, a knowing smile. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope, unopened. "This came last week," she said, tapping it once. "Addressed from your mother, postmarked the day after you spoke to the registrar." I took it. It was an invitation. My graduation invitation. The one they told the family never existed. Still sealed. Still a lie. "They sent it knowing it was too late," I said. She nodded. "They didn't want me to come. Didn't want me to see what they didn't build." I looked at her. "Why did you come?" She raised an eyebrow, then said it, without flinching, without blinking, "Because I knew you did all of this without them." The words settled like thunder, not loud, but final. She patted my hand once, then stood. "Come on," she said. "We're taking pictures. You earned the light today." And in the distance, past the cameras and the clapping and the bouquets, I saw them. Not front and center, not even in the venue, just standing behind the side fence, near the parked cars, watching, not proud, not welcome, just there, because they'd been found out, and for once, they had no version of the story left to tell. We took the photo in front of the college seal, not the branded backdrop used for press shots, the real one, carved in stone, set into the courtyard wall, the one you couldn't fake. My grandmother stood beside me. She held the corner of my gown like she used to hold my jacket when I was little, just enough to say I'm here without saying a word. The photographer counted to 3. I didn't smile. I stood still, straight. Exactly as I had the day I found out the invitation never went out. The shutter clicked. That photo, just her and me, would be the one printed in the college newsletter, the one posted to the official commencement board, the one displayed in the alumni spotlight during orientation the next fall. The story it told needed no caption. They didn't approach us. Not that day. I saw them from a distance, my mother trying to decide if she should come closer, my father staring at the ground, my brother pretending he wasn't embarrassed, but they stayed near the parked cars, outside the gate, beyond the boundary where truth had already crossed and claimed its place. Later that night they called. Once. No voicemail. Then a text. "We didn't know you were speaking. We would have come." No punctuation, no apology, just a hollow sentence in the shape of a parent. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to correct. They had made sure I was forgotten, and now the forgetting was mutual. Instead, I framed the photo. Not the diploma, not the medal. The photo. Just me and her in front of the seal, in full view of the world that now knew exactly who showed up and who didn't. I placed it on my desk the next morning. Then I opened my laptop. There was an email from the university's first-year welcome team. "We'd be honored if you returned next semester as a keynote speaker for our incoming class. No mention of my GPA, no request for a resume. Just one sentence that mattered. Your story changed the room." The incoming freshman orientation was held in the same auditorium, same red velvet curtains, same polished wooden podium, same overhead lights that washed out the faces of anyone faking pride. But this time, I stood on stage by invitation, official, printed, and impossible to erase. The program listed me first. Claire Dalton, alumna, valedictorian, guest keynote, no asterisk, no apology. I wore black slacks, a structured blazer, nothing flashy, but the shoes were the same ones I walked the graduation stage in. Call it symbolic. Because that day, I wasn't walking for survival. I was walking in ownership. They were in the audience again. Not by plan, by chance. My brother was applying to a graduate program at the same university. He hadn't known I'd be speaking. Neither had they. But when my name echoed through the auditorium as the keynote, I saw it. The shift in his posture, the sudden stillness of my mother, the way my father looked down at the floor like the words were written there instead of on the screen behind me. "Success," I told the students, "doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it comes with silence. Sometimes it arrives in the absence of people you thought would never miss a moment. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it arrives when they have no choice but to sit quietly and watch." I didn't cry. Didn't pause for effect. I just let the room hold it. No one clapped yet. They were listening too hard. After the ceremony, the crowd swelled toward the exit. My brother didn't speak to me. He walked out with a stack of brochures under one arm, flanked by our parents. No one looked back, and I didn't need them to. Outside, my grandmother waited by the stone seal again. She had a thermos of tea in one hand and a chair set up beneath the shade. "How was it?" she asked, already knowing. "Permanent," I said. We took another photo. Just us. Same background, same stillness, different world. This time the caption came from her. "She did all of this without you." She didn't shout it, she didn't aim it, she just said it, loud enough for them to hear as they passed by. And this time they didn't pretend not to hear. They kept walking, heads down, truth trailing behind them like an unwanted shadow. I didn't need revenge. I needed a record. Now I had both. And they'd never lose that invitation again, because this time I was the one doing the inviting, and they weren't on the list.